In an effort to further support local governments manage their waste at the local level, and in parallel to our early goals under AB 939, CalRecycle manages several individual material programs, and these fall into three broad categories: the beverage container recycling program, advanced recycling fee or disposal fee programs, and extended producer responsibility programs. And I want to briefly cover each of these types. The original goal of the Beverage Container Recycling and Litter Reduction Act, or colloquially the Bottle Bill, was to achieve an 80% recycling rate for all aluminum, glass, plastic, and bimetal containers sold in California, thereby reducing the beverage container component of litter in the state. California's recycling rate for beverage containers has reached that goal several times throughout the program, and indeed in 2014 the recycling rate was 80% for beverage containers. There are various challenges facing the Bottle Bill today, including defrauding of the program and structural deficits of the program's fund. CalRecycle, the legislature, and the California State Auditor's Office have all suggested various reforms to this program and are continuing to suggest reforms to the program. Last year's round of reforms have led to several high-profile arrests of individuals accused of illegally bringing bottles and cans over the border. In addition, these reforms have led to improvements in the collection quality of materials in general, which leads to more accurate rates and less defrauding of the program. And we're very encouraged by the steps that we've been taking so far. And we're hopeful that continuing efforts going forward will lead to long-term sustainability of the program. Our second major class of individual programs are the advanced recycling fee programs. These employ an advanced recycling fee in order to ensure that materials are recycled or otherwise managed properly at the end of their usable life. Beginning in the early 1990s, California introduced several programs to track and monitor target materials that were of concern to the state. These include our programs for used oil, covered electronic waste, and tires. And together, these three programs have collected over 2 billion gallons of used lubricating and industrial oil since 1994, 1.4 billion pounds of covered electronic waste since 2005, and 42 million passenger tires in 2013 alone. So we're collecting a lot of material through these programs. However, the management burden of advanced recycling fee programs is primarily placed on either local governments or the state, depending on how they're run, in order to oversee the end-of-life handling and recycling of those materials. And as a response to the challenges of advanced disposal fees, local governments and advocacy groups have pushed for a greater role for producers in the end-of-life management of materials through extended producer responsibility, or EPR programs. These are designed to manage waste generated throughout a product's lifetime by placing responsibility on the producer to manage the waste after the product is sold. In the last 5 years, California has adopted 3 EPR programs for paint, carpet, and mattresses. And we've seen initial successes with all 3 of these, well, with 2 of these programs. Mattresses will come online very soon. And we're continuing to push for higher recovery and recycling rates. And we believe that this is an effective tool for targeting specific materials for recycling. So with the passage of AB 341, we're entering a new paradigm for recycling management of all materials in the state. And often these are more challenging materials to remove from the landfills than some of the low-hanging fruit that we looked at under AB 939. This new paradigm has required CalRecycle to further broaden our efforts throughout California. Statewide, we've been pushing 2 major new initiatives: mandatory commercial recycling, or MCR, and mandatory commercial organic recycling, or MORE. Mandatory commercial recycling, which was established under AB 341, targets 2/3 of the overall disposed waste stream and went into effect on July 1st, 2012. Specifically, this law affects businesses that generate more than 4 cubic yards of solid waste per week, and multifamily dwelling units or apartment complexes with 5 units or more. These businesses must arrange for recycling services. As this program comes online, we're looking at how to evaluate and track our progress, both at the jurisdiction and state level. Our commercial recycling infrastructure has been expanding under AB 341 in order to accommodate these new recycling practices. And we're continuing to work with our local government partners in order to ensure that education and other programs are in place in order to ensure that this program is successful. And that's because we are acutely aware that just having a new mandate does not ensure success of these programs. Top-down mandates can drive people toward low-cost options or even no-cost illegal options in some cases. And as a result, we're continuing to invest in the infrastructure in order to make sure that mandatory commercial recycling helps get us toward our 75% goal. And we're committed to continuing to work with our local government partners who will play a key role in the implementation of this program. In 2014, California also established a new law, AB 1826, to further assist CalRecycle in meeting the 75% statewide recycling goal. AB 1826 phases in mandatory commercial recycling for organic material, and its phased implementation will begin in 2016. Local efforts have been in place for decades. However, organic waste is still a major component of our disposal stream. Again, roughly 10 million tons of this material was thrown away in 2013. This is fairly split between residential and commercial sources, and since AB 1826 only targets commercial and multifamily dwellings, this does leave out a significant portion of entities that generate organic waste. Also, organics management is an entirely different process from commodity recyclables, and so it's important for CalRecycle to have a different plan than what we used under mandatory commercial recycling. CalRecycle is, again, committed to working with our jurisdictions as they develop programs to begin the first stage of implementation next spring. As we start to implement AB 1826 on our path to achieving 75% recycling, there are several questions that CalRecycle will be tracking. These include evaluating the growth of our infrastructure, again, a projected doubling of the facilities, the amount of green jobs that we're creating by developing this infrastructure. Our most recent estimate suggests that over 16,000 green jobs could be created by the implementation of AB 1826, as well as the broader impacts of this law throughout the state. In addition, AB 1826 ties directly into our larger efforts to reduce organic waste and their associated greenhouse gas emissions throughout California. And this includes substantially, effectively eliminating organic waste from landfills under the short-lived climate pollutant plan by 2025 and our Healthy Soils Initiative. So CalRecycle has a number of exciting programs in place, and we are continuing to move forward in our efforts to promote the highest and best use of materials, as well as to achieve 75% statewide recycling. We believe that with our experience with AB 939, the Beverage Container Recycling Program, our advanced disposal fees, and EPR programs will be vital for our success in reaching the goal. And we are committed to working with stakeholders and the legislature to address any concerns that may arise. There are two main questions that we're considering as we move toward the 75% goal. First, are we on track to reach our goal? There are two components in our mind to reaching the 75% goal: developing the infrastructure needed to handle the material that is no longer going to landfills, and achieving our target disposal of 2.7 pounds per person per day statewide. We believe that we are on our way to developing appropriate infrastructure for commodity recyclables as well as organics, but there is still a lot more work to do in order to reach those targets. In addition to developing the infrastructure, we are closely following our disposal metrics. In 2014, disposal and disposal-related activities accounted for 5.4 pounds per person per day of disposal, or 50% recycling. And so clearly we have more work to do to get to 2.7, but we are confident that with our mandatory commercial organics recycling coming online in concert with our other programs, that this is an achievable goal. In addition, just because disposal goes down does not mean that we have an increase in recycling. Decreased disposal could result from a declining economy, as we saw in 2008, or from untracked disposal that we simply don't know about. And just as jurisdiction reporting is not sufficient for evaluating our 50% diversion at the local level, we feel that 2.7 pounds per person per day, our target, is one indicator of 75% recycling. And as a result, we're thinking about how to accurately track and assess whether we have reached 75% recycling in the absence of tracking recyclables in California. The second question that we're looking at is how do we maintain financial solvency? We've already discussed this a little bit today, but I want to touch on it again briefly. CalRecycle is currently funded through a range of funding sources overall, and these include a solid waste fee of $1.40 per ton of disposed material, as well as various fees on single items such as tires, used oil, electronic waste, and beverage containers. These product fees bring in a substantial amount of money, but most of it is paid back to consumers or recyclers through grants or return programs. The Integrated Waste Management Account, which comes from the solid waste fee, is the largest source of revenue for CalRecycle's operations. Decreases in disposal as a part of our 75% recycling goal significantly impact the Integrated Waste Management Fund. When we reach our goal, there will be a $29 million funding gap. And this does not include increases in the cost of recycling, our continuing mission to protect public health and environmental health and safety, or a recycling infrastructure that is twice as large as what we currently have in California and the regulatory requirements that come along with that. CalRecycle has been working with the legislature in order to ensure a robust long-term funding structure in light of the 75% recycling goal that will provide resources to both achieve and maintain the 75% goal, encourage recycling and composting of organics and other materials, as well as infrastructure and job development, and finally to provide a diversified and sustainable funding source that reduces CalRecycle's reliance on a disposal-based revenue structure. So in summary, California has raised the bar for recycling under the 75% recycling goal with AB 341. We believe that our new programs, including MCR and mandatory organics recycling, will be critical in reaching that goal. We also feel that the infrastructure must continue to grow in order to provide sufficient processing capacity for our recyclable and compostable items. And this has the possibility of adding, we estimate, roughly 100,000 green jobs to California at the economy, as well as reducing our greenhouse gas emissions. However, there are challenges to moving forward. Incomplete data on recycling in California makes it challenging to assess our policies and promote our recycling infrastructure. In addition, decreasing the amount of material going to disposal, while a key part of our mission, will lead to an unsustainable funding structure for the department. And this is especially critical to address as we take on new programs and responsibilities. These challenges are solvable, and we are optimistic that by aggressively pushing our organics policies in concert with the Air Resources Board and the mandatory organic commercial recycling program, coupled with our continuing partnership with local governments and the solid waste industry, that we can meet our 75% statewide recycling goal. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Morrison. Let me start questions that other members of the committee might have, but let me start. So we've set a goal, but we don't have data to know whether we're going to reach that goal or how we get there. How do we begin to put together the kind of data program that's going to be necessary to understand whether we're actually achieving what we want to achieve?
Well, and I agree that's an incredible challenge within the program. Part of the reason why we have our disposal-based target is because we do currently track disposal. But as you mentioned, in order to actually evaluate recycling and composting, we really do need to have information directly from those facilities.
I may have some other questions, but nope.
Christine Hironaka, Legislative Director for CalRecycle. As Karen mentioned, we do currently lack the ability to, or we don't have a system rather to track recycling, but the department is working with the legislature. I'd like to thank Mr. Gordon for his leadership, Mr. Chair, because we do need that information in order to both track whether we're meeting 75%, but also to identify what we need to achieve it. So we are thankful for efforts and discussions in the legislature to give CalRecycle that ability to have that information moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there other members of the committee who have questions or comments at this point? Seeing none, let me thank you, Ms. Morrison, for your presentation. We will move to our third and final panel. And reminding the public that once this panel is complete, we will take public comment.